Thank you, Stephen. Here's a copy of Capitalism Unbound, by the way, hot off the presses. My not too modest tagline for this book is, other than Ayn Rand's books, the greatest book ever on capitalism. That's not very modest. All right. Now, as you know, the title for tonight's talk is Global Capitalism, the Solution to World Oppression and Poverty. With this mic, I assume everybody can hear me? Okay. Now, a proper understanding of global capitalism is sorely lacking today because, more fundamentally, an understanding is lacking of capitalism in general, of its nature, its history, and its enormous benefit. This talk seeks to accomplish two tasks. One, to show the immense universal benefits of global capitalism, and two, explain that and how these benefits flow directly and necessarily from capitalism's basic nature. And let's start with an example. During World War II, the economy in Hong Kong was badly damaged by Japanese occupation. And making matters worse, several years later, a flood of refugees arrived from China fleeing the communist conquest. In the mid-1950s, many of the penniless Chinese who had fled the mainland subsisted in Hong Kong in temporary quarters, in one-room cells in a multi-story building that was open in the front. One family, one room. Like many third-world countries, Hong Kong was desperately poor. In 1960, for example, its average per capita income was approximately only 25% of that in Great Britain, its mother country. But in the 40 and now 50 years since, its economic progress has been one of the great economic success stories in all of history. It developed productive industries in textiles, electronics, plastics, watches, and clocks. It became one of the leading financial centers of East Asia. In 1996, its per capita income was 137% that of its former mother country, the by now semi-socialist Great Britain. Average individual wealth in Hong Kong was greater than in Germany and even Japan. Prior to the Asian crisis of the late 90s, its per capita wealth was creeping up on that in the United States, the world's most affluent nation. Today, its per capita income is in the mid-$20,000 range, making it one of the most prosperous places on earth. In a mere 4 decades, at a breakneck pace, Britain's island colony rose. What factor or factors made possible such extraordinary economic development? Perhaps it should first be noted those that were not responsible. Hong Kong has virtually none, and I mean zero, of the factors that modern intellectuals generally view as a source of wealth. For example, the island has no natural resources. It has no oil, no coal, no iron ore, no timber, no fertile agricultural lands. The former Soviet Union, for example, had vastly more such resources, as do many African countries, yet they were and are poor, even destitute, while Hong Kong is wealthy. Further, Hong Kong has an extraordinarily high population density, which is a factor that modern thinkers often consider a cause of poverty. The Sham Sui Po district of Kowloon, for example, has a population density of greater than 425,000 people per square mile, which makes it 18 times as crowded as my native New York City. Hong Kong, per square mile, has 14 times as many people as Japan, 20 times as many as India, and 185 times as many as the US. While Hong Kong has, as to many places, a great harbor, its greatest natural resource by far is one that it shares with every country on earth: the intelligence of its inhabitants. What enables Hong Kong to employ that intelligence to create wealth much more effectively than other places is a factor that is not natural but man-made: political economic freedom. In Hong Kong, an individual needed no bureaucratic permission to initiate his own business. He could simply start it up and apply later for a permit, the city became an entrepreneurial hotbed. Imagine the horror of the anti-capitalist socialist mentalities if it was said to them, what if there were a country in which the government essentially stays out of the economy? One with no tariffs or other legal restrictions on international trade, with no regulatory agencies, no minimum wage laws, no price or wage controls. Imagine it is said to them that the government limits neither investment coming in nor profit going out. There's no capital gains tax, no interest tax, no sales tax, and a pittance in corporate bailouts for companies that fail to compete on a free market. This imaginary country, let's say, has a 15% flat tax, enabling its citizens to retain the overwhelming preponderance of their earnings. Further, it extends no unemployment benefits, enacts no labor legislation, and provides no Social Security, no national health insurance, and scarcely any welfare. The welfare statist would recoil in horror from such a proposal. He would drown his questioner with dire warnings regarding the misery of the numberless poor and exploited that would be the inevitable victims of such a heartless, callous system. But in fact, that country exists. It is real. It is Hong Kong, one of the wealthiest nations of history. To answer my question succinctly, capitalism is responsible for Hong Kong's wealth. But what is capitalism? What is its nature and its defining essence? The freedom to open your own business and to trade unrestrictedly across national boundaries, as in Hong Kong, is a derivative issue. It is one consistent application of capitalism's fundamental nature, respect for the rights and the freedom of the individual. I repeat that because that is the defining essence of capitalism. It's respect for the rights and the freedom of the individual. The essence of the capitalist system is limited government, which protects the right of individuals to live by their own judgment in all areas of life, including both personal morality and economics. Such a system guarantees individuals freedom of speech, of religion, and of intellectual expression. Men are free to earn and to own their own property, their own homes, their own farms, their own land. They're free to start their own businesses and to retain the profits that they earn. Capitalism provides a rule of law that protects private property, safeguards investments, and enforces contractual agreements. The overarching principle is that capitalism is the system of individual rights. Capitalism, as Ayn Rand defined it, is the system of individual rights, including property rights, in which all property is privately owned. Now, since that's a definitional statement, let me repeat that. Capitalism is the system of individual rights, including property rights, in which all property is privately owned. Now, deeper than that, capitalism is based on the moral code of rational egoism, the code that recognizes an individual's need to attain the values his life requires, that the nature of human life requires an individual to use his own mind and put forth his own effort to earn the values upon which his survival, prosperity, and happiness depend. Capitalism protects an individual's inalienable right to pursue his own happiness. It is the only political economic system consistent with the moral principle that an individual has the right to his own life, that your life does not belong to the state, the tribe, the nation, the people, the race, whatever. And capitalism is the only system that consistently repudiates the slave driver theory, claiming that human beings and individuals do owe selfless service to others, whether to society, the state, the proletariat, or fill in the blank. Now, capitalism's history has been so largely ignored, or worse, distorted by Marxist professors and journalists, that it is important to identify some of its most important points. For example, Great Britain during the 18th and early 19th century was the first European nation to gradually throw off the oppression of feudalism and the monarchy and begin to institute a system of individual rights. Also during this period, Britain's North American colonies fomented a